Fender are no strangers to the acoustic guitar world. Even within the past few years, their Acoustasonic line have appeared on stages all across the globe. While many players may only know about their iconic electrics, the DNA certainly translates over to their flat top counterparts. We're going to take a look at 4 acoustic guitars in the Fender California line. Look at what makes them great and why they're absolutely perfect for predominantly electric guitar players. We have split this video up into chapters also, so if there is a specific guitar you do want to see and hear, just check below. But we're going to kick things off with the Redondo Player. Considered by most to be the quintessential acoustic guitar shape, the Dreadnought is the biggest and boxiest acoustic guitar that Fender do in the California line. It can handle pretty much every kind of genre when it comes to acoustic guitars and most playing styles, is why it's so popular across the globe. Spec-wise, the Redondo has a solid spruce top and Sapelli back and sides. The top kind of where all the sound is coming from with the acoustic guitar, but I will touch on that just in a moment. It features a walnut bridge and fingerboard, and it is actually loaded with a Fishman preamp system. So this means that you can play it amplified and you can record with it. We've got a DI kind of mixed in with our mic signal as well, so you can hear that kind of throughout the demos. And of course, obviously the most flashy thing about this acoustic and all the other acoustics as well is that they do feature the 6-in-a-line Strat style headstock and come in some of these super cool colors like this candy apple red on the Redondo here. Very similar to their electric guitars also. As I mentioned previously, the Redondo does have a solid spruce top, and for those that don't know, acoustic guitar woods are usually split into 2 categories, that being all solids or solid woods, or laminate or non-solid woods. Now this isn't the specific tone woods that go into acoustic guitars. I will touch on that just in a little bit when I go onto another model. The main difference with a solid and a non-solid being that a solid bit of wood on a guitar is usually going to be a lot more vibrant, a lot more responsive when it comes to actually playing it. But on the other hand, non-solid woods usually have got a bit more kind of structural integrity and are less susceptible to environmental changes, which can really wreak havoc with solid woods. They're not going to be as kind of vibrant and responsive when it comes to the sound. For example, I'll play something on this solid top Redondo and then I'll move over to one of our other guitars that is a non-solid guitar, and hopefully you can hear the difference. Obviously, both of those guitars were slightly different sizes, so that's going to alter the sound, but hopefully you could kind of hear what I mean just from those sound examples there. When it comes to mid-price acoustics, certainly like the Fender California series, certainly that combo of a solid top and a laminated back and sides, you kind of can't really get better than that, other than obviously all solid across the guitar. But it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because not only do you have the structural integrity and you're not worrying about, the guitar sort of shifting due to temperatures or taking it, on tour or anything like that, while you still get that responsiveness from the top. It allows it just to kind of, vibrate a lot more, and also just, it's considered the best sound when it comes to an acoustic. So these are absolutely perfect for that kind of middle ground, novice to intermediate sort of level. The Newporter here, that shares actually quite a lot of spec with the Redondo that we've already just been over there, so there's kind of not much to touch on spec-wise, obviously, with this guitar. There are 2 main points that I do want to focus with this guitar, one being the body shape and the other being the neck, which is quite uniform across the California line. The Newporter sports an auditorium-shaped body, which is a little bit more tapered at the kind of the waist of the guitar, I guess you can call that there. And what that'll do, not only taking away some of the high end of the guitar, for me anyway, it makes it a lot more comfy to play. I just find with the previous Dreadnought shape, for me personally, obviously you may completely differ, but I find myself having to kind of lean over the guitar a lot less. My arm sort of sits right comfy in the middle here. The other important topic that I do want to touch on is actually the neck and the neck shape here. Now, this is quite uniform across the California series, and this is why I think that they are a really perfect acoustic guitar for anyone who predominantly plays electric. The California series uses what's known as a slim C shape on the neck there. Now, you might not be able to see that obviously from a video here. A good way to look at it, and this is for anybody who doesn't understand the letter convention sort of naming system for necks. A really easy way to sort of look at it is if you make a C with your hand there, that's what the shape of the neck's going to be. Now you get a few, you get like a D, you get a U, you even get what's known as a V-shaped neck. But a C is sort of what's used kind of predominantly with a lot of Fender Electrics at the moment. So as soon as I got my hands on this neck, it immediately felt like a Strat or a Tele from the modern line. And I mean, other than the slightly thicker strings on this, it feels almost identical. It's nice and skinny. It's really easy to play for kind of long periods of time, which for anyone who does struggle with thicker necks, or certainly even just, you know, playing guitar for long periods of time, which certainly we've experienced a lot of people coming in asking these questions into the shop. It is one of the comfier shapes that you can find, and certainly the thinness and obviously the ease of play is a big advantage with these guitars. One last thing to touch with the neck as well is they are all satin finished, which you may have felt some other guitars that have got quite a heavy gloss on them, and you know, that's a personal preference certainly across kind of most brands. I do kind of prefer that sort of unfinished feel to it. It's not that sticky, it's, you know, it just feels really nice in your hands as well. And again, anyone who's familiar with Fender Electrics is immediately going to feel, you know, in the same sort of ballpark. The smallest guitar that we're going to look at, this is the Monterey. Now this is our only all laminate guitar that we're going to look at out of these four today, which actually makes this probably the most budget friendly out of all four of these guitars. The smaller body too changes the tone pretty drastically, and certainly these kind of smaller guitars are always told they're more suited for kind of finger picking, but that's not to say that you can't do both on them, and I'll show you right now. If anything, the size of this guitar is absolutely perfect for just kind of, you know, anyone who's looking to sort of laze around and just strum some chords or do some finger picking, or even like with its slightly smaller size. It's absolutely perfect for traveling, and, you know, the all laminate construction is only going to benefit that as well, because if you're taking this thing on and off buses, if you're going even on a plane with this or anything, the all laminate construction, as I've mentioned previously, that it's not going to change with sort of temperature fluctuations or, you know, drastic changes to your environment. This one features a Fender preamp just on the top there, which has actually got a built-in tuner as well. But maybe the most drastic change to this guitar is actually featured on the neck and the length of the neck. Something that's always mentioned when people are looking at guitar specs is something called the scale length. Again, for those who maybe don't know what that is, that's the distance from the nut, which is just at the top of the guitar here, to the bridge, and it will determine a couple of things without getting into too much detail. Essentially what it will do is it will affect the tension of the strings on the guitar, meaning that on a slightly shorter scale length, it's not going to feel as sort of stiff and you don't need to apply as much pressure to the strings to actually hit the notes. On the previous guitars that I just played, they have a scale length of 25.5 inches, whereas on the Monterey here, it has a 24.75 inch scale length. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but for anyone who's maybe got slightly shorter sort of arms or smaller hands, this can be a huge difference to their comfort in playing. Another really important thing with this guitar is actually the string spacing. Now, this is a feature that's not usually specified when it comes to acoustic guitars because a lot kind of go off the same mold to a certain extent. On the Monterey here, it does have a string spacing of just 2 inches from string to string there, so that's from your low E to your high E. Now, what this will do is, certainly for anyone who's got slightly smaller hands or is a beginner, or again, as I've mentioned, maybe struggle to play kind of traditional acoustic guitars by any means, this is going to be a huge help for them essentially, because the strings are that little bit closer together. You can play finger picking, without having to jump across. You can, strum without having to go so far down the guitar. And just in terms of, like, as I said, ease of play with your left hand here, you're not needing to kind of stretch as much, between stuff. And certainly for anyone who's just starting, maybe just, doing some cowboy chords on there, the jumps that you'll need to make, especially during that beginner phase, they're just going to be that little bit easier for you. The final guitar we're going to talk about for today is the Villager, which immediately from looking at this guitar, you may notice this has an additional 6 strings on it, and you would be right in guessing that. The Villager is essentially a Newport body, which is that auditorium style, without the cutaway, which I forgot to mention on the other guitars. For anyone who fancies doing some solos, obviously, like, that's an absolute no-brainer, and it kind of looks quite cool, but this is the uncutaway version of the Newporter. Spruce tops, Pelly back and sides on there with still the walnut bridge and the fingerboard. Also, with this guitar, obviously the main feature is going to be the additional 6 strings on it. A very quick explanation of a 12 string again for anyone who maybe doesn't know. A 12 string is still tuned the same as a traditional sort of standard tuning, E, A, D, G, B, E. What it now has is doubled up strings on each of those there. So I'll just show you, even on this low E here, there's your regular kind of tuned to standard E, but then right beside it, you have one that is an octave higher. So essentially what it is if you're playing just a standard tuned E, and then you play the 12th string there as well, that's what that one's tuned to. What this does is it gives the acoustic a much more open and almost natural chorus sort of sound to it, where if anybody's obviously familiar with Guitar Effects, chorus is really, really popular across the board. It's been making a comeback recently, which I'm all okay with. While it can take a little bit of time to get used to, there's no denying that the 12 string has got its own unique sound, and there's certainly some really famous examples of songs over the years, whether it be Hotel California, Stairway to Heaven, or Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. They've all used the 12 string in the recording and even, live as well. And it just gives this, as I mentioned, just this much more full and sort of airy sound. It's really, really cool. One last thing to mention with the Villager as well is it does have the shorter scale length of 24.75 inches, like the Monterey I was just playing. So again, it makes that tension of an additional 6 strings just that little bit easier to play, and I don't think you're going to have any problems having a good bit of fun on this guitar. But what do you think? Are you predominantly an electric player? Have you ever thought about trying out Fender acoustic guitars? Let us know in the comments, and obviously while you're there, give us a like and a subscribe. Every single like on this video, I will play Stairway to Heaven on this 12 string to annoy my colleagues. But until then, I've been Kieran. Have a great day.